Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Walkthrough Game Day Show presented by Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort. I'm Schuyler Callihan. That's Eugene Napoleon. And we're going to get into the West Virginia Texas Tech preview. Today, we're going to also talk a little bit about the Backyard Brawl and the way that thing kind of unfolded. Obviously, West Virginia coming out as winners 17-6. We're also going to do another little cool activity here today, or a cool little segment, and that is our Mountaineer Rushmore, our 4 best players, coaches, however we see it, to ever be a part of the West Virginia football program. Last week we did the all-time offensive draft, and I gotta say, Gene, I'll give you credit. A lot of the fans voted that you had the better team, but I think you may have slid a couple dollar bills their way, if we're just being honest. You were telling me your bank account's a little short, so that's where I think that some of that money went. But no, I'll give you the props. You did have the better team. Probably didn't have the best strategy there, waiting to take my quarterback, and then you scooped up the second best quarterback on the board. So it is what it is. You live and you learn. Today, I will learn from that and do a much better job picking my Mountaineer Rushmore. So just like we did last week, when we get to that portion of the show, if you're on YouTube watching, comment in the comments section about who you think has the better Mountaineer Rushmore, and we'll revisit that next week. But before we get into all that stuff, Gene, we've got to talk some more of this Backyard Brawl. We talked about it a little bit on the Relatively Sports Show yesterday, but just this win, it just feels monumental for Neil Brown. It feels big for this program. And again, it's not a top 10 win. It's not a win that's going to all of a sudden change the expectations of, oh, this is a Big 12 contender or national contender. We're not going that crazy. We're going to keep it realistic, right? But as I mentioned before, I don't know that at any point in time in Neil Brown's tenure that there's been this much hope and excitement around the program and energy around the program than there has been since Saturday night when that final gun went off and West Virginia defeated Pitt 17-6.
This is it. I mean, this is it in terms of starting that feel-good moment that we were all looking for. Starting that moment of where you can say, okay.
You're trusting the climb? You trusting the climb?
Well, I'm on a rung. I'm on rung 2 or 3 right now. But I have to admit, it feels good because that's what happens when you play a real rivalry game like the Backyard Brawl. That's what happens. You know, you get people excited because this is something we've been waiting for a long time. You have to admit, this would be considered his first signature win since he's been in Morgantown. That's how I'm looking at it. His first signature win. Because if you don't win this game, you think about it in reverse, we're going to help the man pack.
Exactly.
Okay. So you got to give him his props when he win a game like he did in the fashion that he did. That was a dominant performance all the way around the board because he did exactly what he was supposed to have done. He ran the ball down Pitt's throat. Defensively, we came up with big play after big play after big play. We played sound in the special teams game, and you controlled the clock. So at the end of the day, all of the things that you have to do to play big boy football, that's what he showed us, and it just happened to have been against Pitt.
Exactly. And I'm right there with you. Like, some people may, have their eyebrows raised when you say that may be his most signature win. But when you talk about everything that goes into that game and the outcome, right? Like you said, I mean, that was a huge win for him because if not, there's a lot of that seat's starting to get a little toasty already. If he loses that game, he's going to be, you know what I'm saying? Because he's not going to be he's not going to be wanting to sit down anytime soon on that seat. But I mean, when you look at his tenure, yes, he's got some wins against top 25 teams. He's had some decent and impressive wins, but this game felt to him, well, at least to me, I shouldn't speak for the man, but for him, felt like it was do or die. And it's not that they would cut, ties with him in the middle of the season or that they would have fired him Saturday night or Sunday morning. But that loss, if that would have been a loss, to me, that would have put a seed of doubt in Ren Baker's mind that don't know if this is our guy. But the way they won that game, Gene, Again, Pitt goes right down the field. You're thinking, oh no, like this is a terrible start. Then Garrett Green goes out of the game in the second drive, and you're like, oh my gosh, could this get any worse? And then all of a sudden, boom, everything just stops on a dime. They figure things out defensively right away. They hold Pitt to 3 points, 3 points
Yeah.
after that first possession for the rest of the game. They didn't even get in the end zone, G. Didn't even
That's
sniff
right.
it.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I mean, there was just so many there's so many really good plays in that game, important plays. To me, the one that sticks out is the 4th and 1, right? Where they're still having a chance in the fourth quarter. They go for it on 4th and 1. And I told my wife, I was like, they're going to get this. I mean, he's a big kid. All he's got to do is fall forward. They stuffed him, 4th and short. They get the turnover on downs, and that was pretty much the final nail in the coffin for the Pitt Panthers. So, tip of the hat to Neil Brown. You lose your starting quarterback, second drive of the game. You find a way to win, and now you're feeling okay. You're feeling really good. You're 2-1. You have one more home game coming up here with the chance of being 3-1 and having a win against your bitter rival in Pitt, the only loss being against one of the best teams in the country. This is the most excitement that has existed in this program and around it since Neil has taken over.
And that's the reason why I say what I said as far as a signature win. You name me one signature win. I don't care if it was against a top 25 team. And the reason why I say that, because that is
he had to have this win. Had to have this win.
In the context of what he had to do, that's why I say it's the most signature win, because you kind of get let off the hook when you first take over a program and the coverage and bear and all that stuff. You get that the 1, 2, possibly 3 years to fix whatever was broken, right? So I don't know if I count those, because those you're licking your wounds when you lose close games or when you get blown out the stadium, right? Because you're trying to fix something. This is expectations are the seat is really hot, toasty hot. You got some cold water, to kind of keep your bottom warm, or cooled off a little bit. You had to have this game, regardless of what anybody thought. I know in his mind, it's like, we cannot come out and lose this game. So for him to put together, along with that wonderful staff of his, a game strategy to say, we are going to do it this way for 4 quarters, and we're going to accept the outcome. And then you do that, kudos to Neil Brown and that staff. I got to give him his props. This, to me, just to me, is his most signature win since he's been in Morgantown, to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think, too, it also provides us a huge sigh of relief for this team, too, because I think even going into that game, there was a lot of pressure, obviously, to win that game, not only from Neil, but for the players, too. If you drop to 1-2, you're like this. You're on the ropes, right? And all it takes is that one knockout punch from Texas Tech, and you're 1-3, and you're licking your wounds trying to figure out how the heck you're going to get back on track. Now that you're 2-1, again, you have a home game coming up. Gene, this was the team that was picked to finish dead last in the Big 12 Conference in the preseason by the media. They're 2-1. There's a lot of football left, and now you're not on the ropes anymore. You're off, and you're ready to you're ready to throw the next punch. So now that you're on the attack and you're feeling loose, you're playing more freely. You're not so tight and you're not so pressured. I just feel like this is going to open up a bit more things for this team moving forward. So
anything can happen at this juncture of the season because they won that game, opposed to not winning that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It gives them a whole load of confidence heading into this week against Texas Tech. Again, we're going to get into that here in just a minute. But first, we're going to take a break. On the other side, we're going to come back and talk our Mountaineer Rushmore, 1 coach, 3 players. Who's going to have the better one, Gene or myself? We'll go back and forth and have a little draft with it. So stay tuned right after this word from Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Do you have dirty air ducts? Is your dryer vent plugged up? Well, odds are you probably don't know the answer to that question. Fortunately for you, we know a guy. Give Justin at Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning a call at 304-639-3395 for your free home evaluation. That's 304-639-3395. Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort. 'Cause 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 'c All right, Gene, here we go. It's time to get into our Mountaineer Rushmore. Again, the parameters for this, just one head coach, 3 players, and it's going to be so hard, Gene, because, I mean, there's so many players. There's a handful of coaches that you could really pick from. We can only pick 4 of these people, right? So that's going to be tough. But you know what?
In the spirit of fairness, last week when we was doing the player draft, you let me go first. So in the spirit of fairness, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, that is very kind of you, Gene, and especially since you won last week too. Maybe the person gets the first pick. Maybe there's something to that. So you know what? I'll take you up on that. I appreciate it. So I'm going to kick you where it hurts right here to start. Okay? And
Okay.
I'm going to go with your guy. Now I could go with 2 different ways here. The guy you maybe played for, the guy you played next to. I'm going to go with the guy that you played next to, and that's Major Harris. I can't help but think that, when we first started up or talking about this as a segment, I was like, I got to have Major. I've got to find a way to have Major. If Gene gets the first pick and he goes Don Nealon, I'm going Major Harris. Regardless, I'm getting Major Harris. So to me, I mean, I think there's an argument to be made. Pat White could be the greatest quarterback of all time in West Virginia history. I can't argue with you. But to me, Major Harris is West Virginia football. Give me number 9.
Listen, and you were exactly right because, yes, I was going there.
Yes, I got you.
You got, yeah, absolutely. Super number 9. So, okay, to start off, any great team, if you don't, you got to have a great quarterback. We know that. But I think the coach obviously starts with the coach. And of course, give me Don Nealon. That's my first pick would be Don Nealon as a head coach.
Yeah, a man you played for, obviously the winningest head coach in West Virginia football history. And, I could go with your strategy of how you did me last week and you doubled up. So maybe I should double up here and take Pat White. No, I won't do that to you because I need a coach too. And you could take that same approach and doubling up on the coaches. So, and I don't want to be stuck with the 3rd best coach. So give me Rich Rodriguez and WVU fans. I know there's some feelings there with Rich Rod. Listen, it's been years ago. I understand there's still frustration. There's still a little bit of weird feelings there. But let's just take it for what it is. The man won football games. He put West Virginia in the national picture during his time in Morgantown. To me, it's not even close. He is the 2nd best head coach. And again, some people may say he's the best. But to me, he's number 2 behind Don Nealon. So give me Rich Rod as my head coach on Mountaineer Rushmore.
That's good. That's good. Give me one of the greatest players to ever play at WVU, and obviously he's one of the greatest players to ever play in the NFL because he dons a gold jacket. Give me Sam Huff.
Oh no! That was my pick. That was my pick. Oh my gosh, I didn't think you'd go that far back. Okay, so since you're going Sam Huff, how about a little bit of a checkmate here, and I'll go with Chuck Howley.
Oof.
For them old timers out there. How about Chuck Howley? I love this. You got to have a little bit of representation from the past, right?
So you have to. Okay, that's a great pick. That's a great pick. Now I'm going to go with another legend who will probably be in the NFL Hall of Fame, and he was a great one. Jesus, was he a great one? Darryl Talley.
Darryl Talley, yeah, that's a really good pick.
Yep.
Okay, so you go with Darryl Talley. Again, Chuck Howley, by the way, a 2023 enshrinee to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So nod to him. So you got Darryl Talley, and I'm going to go with. Oh man, I could go so many ways here, but I've got to go with the most electrifying player to ever put on a WVU uniform, and that's Tavon Austin. And again, I know when I say the most electrifying player, like that's hard to you could say that about Pat White, you could say it about Major Harris. But when I think electrifying, I think, oh my gosh, every time this guy touches the ball, there's a chance he's going to the end zone. There's a reason,
Yeah.
Gene. This guy's got the most viewed highlight tape on YouTube. It's like 22 or 23 million views. This
Absolutely.
is my guy, Tavon Austin.
Listen, let me explain something to you. You can't go wrong with that because you have to look at it in the context of the history of what we've done at WVU, and we've had some great ones. And even this list is really difficult, right? But you can't go wrong with that. So with you saying that, my final pick has to be, again, similar to Tavon Austin's things that he's accomplished at WVU. Then I would have to go with Pat White.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to say. You're arguably talking about two of the greatest quarterbacks, different eras, obviously, with Major Harris and then Pat White. But when you look at the numbers and what they've done at that particular position, and we've had some great quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, as we've had great players at every position at WVU. But Pat White signified something that I don't think people really understand. When you go and you win the way he won at WVU and the type of games he won, and he's never lost a bowl game, which is something that it's hard to say after a hard-fought regular season, there's something to be said about that. He's a winner.
Even the one the Senior Bowl. I mean,
Thank you. A
5-0.
and a pure leader. So I got to go with Pat because you got Major, and in that order, that's what I had on my list. I had Major Harris or Pat White. I had Don Nealon or Rich Rod. And I had Tavon Austin on my list.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, and we're talking about arguably the best player in WVU football history going with our last pick here. That just shows you how many talented players have come through Morgantown over the years. But that was really fun. So let's take a look here up at the teams on the screen. So Team Eugene, he got the upper advantage on me last week in the all-time offensive draft. Let's see what you guys think this week. Again, let us know in the comment section if you're on YouTube, Team Eugene or Team Schuyler. Eugene's got Pat White as his quarterback. Obviously, he's the quarterback, but we're not going by positions here. But he's got Pat White, Daryl Talley, Coach Don Nealon, and Sam Huff. I've got Major Harris, Tavon Austin, Chuck Howley, and Rich Rodriguez. So that's our Mountaineer Rushmore. That was a lot of fun, Gene. I think I might get you back on this one. We might even up the standings here 1-1. We'll figure out something for next week, too. Maybe we'll do an all-time defensive draft. I don't know. We'll get crazy with this thing. We've got a lot of previews to go. So speaking of previews, West Virginia, Texas Tech. Texas Tech is 1-2 on the season. They're coming off a win over Tarleton State. Whip-de-doo. It's Tarleton State. But this is a team that's got a lot of expectations coming into the season. They didn't really get off to the right foot with losing that game on the road to start the season in Wyoming. And I had told you, I said, Gene, this is going to be a weird game for Texas Tech to go on the road in Laramie and play. I thought that was kind of a tricky game. And what do you know? They ended up losing that game. And I don't think that was necessarily a game that kind of beat them twice because they come back, they play Oregon, who's a really damn good football team. So I don't think they just tripped up twice. They actually played really well in that game and almost won. But tough 2 losses there. They bounced back with Tarleton. West Virginia, on the other hand, comes into this one 2-1. And like we said on the game day show, the Duquesne week, remember I said, look, West Virginia's got a tune-up game this week. They don't have to really worry about straining. And, meanwhile, the team they play next week, which was Pitt, they're playing a rival in Cincinnati. They're going to have to strain for 4 quarters. That's kind of on the flip. It's kind of the same thing, but this time West Virginia's on the other side of it. So now they're coming off of a rivalry game, and the team they're playing this week had the tune-up game. It didn't have to do all that much. So we'll see how this goes. But keys to the game for me, I'm going to go with the tempo. And I talked about it on my How West Virginia Beats Texas Tech episode. You can find that here on Mountaineers Now as well. Tempo is the big thing in this one. They want to go 80, 90 plays if they can. That's just what they want to do. Fast, 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 fast. They don't care if they get 15 third downs. As long as they're getting 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1, they're going to go for it on 4th down. They're going to do a lot of different things to make sure they stay on the field and tear down that defense, wear them down. For West Virginia, you've got to do a really good job of getting off the field on 3rd down and getting them in positions where they're not 4th and 2, 4th and 1, or 4th and 3, because they will be tempted to go for it. They want to do that. That's their nature. That's their identity. So you have to win those battles. I think against Texas or against Oregon and Wyoming, they were like 57 and 52% or something like that on 3rd and 4th downs combined. That's pretty damn good. So again, if you can dictate the tempo to your favor, I think you have a chance to win this game, even as 6.5-point underdogs, whatever West Virginia is. But if you get into where your defense is playing 75, 80 plus snaps, that's an uphill battle, G. It really is.
That's going to be tough. And to be honest with you, and the reason why that's tough for obvious reasons. When you look at Virginia, I was going to say Virginia Tech. When you look at Texas Tech, they understand what they do very well. They understand what that is. They get what that is. And that's why tempo for them is very important. But conversely, if you flip that, like we talked about a few days ago, and our defense really holds them, I'm going to say make it 2nd and long, 3rd and long. That really, it kind of slows that tempo down, because now it makes you think. It makes you think a little bit differently about your play calling, right? The perspective of that game changes. So I really do believe that has to happen. So I agree with you on a key. You can't let them come in here and run 78 to 82 plays. If that happens, that's going to be tough sledding, for our Mountaineers. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you, but that is a key. For me, one of the biggest keys is controlling the line of scrimmage, and you're going to have to beat them up. Both sides of the ball. Our defensive line is going to have to beat up their offensive line and vice versa. Our offensive line is going to have to do a number on their defensive line. I think whoever controls the line of scrimmage and whoever controls tempo of that particular game, that means you're playing your style of football, your brand of football, right? Whoever does that and limits the mistakes will win this football game.
Yeah, and if you play heavy-handed and play in between tackles and just kind of lean on that veteran offensive line, even 50 or 55 plays for Texas Tech on defense is going to be like, oh my gosh, this feels like 80, because you got C.J. Donaldson and Jalen Anderson just hammering the ball right down your throat, and that's a very tough thing to do when you're sitting there and you're just watching the clock just tick off and just go and go and go. So I think that's a big part of this game. You got to be physical in the trenches. And if they do what they did last week against Pitt, I mean, I'm just saying that's a very good point there. That's a huge key to success in this game. And for me, I think the last thing is you got to play to Nico Marchiol's strengths if he is indeed your starter. That seems to be the way we're trending here. Garrett Green is kind of up in the air right now. It's questionable that he plays. He's got an ankle injury, came out again in the second drive of the Pitt game. He didn't practice the first 2 days this week. All the reps went to Nico Marchiol. But Neil did say, hey, if he is able to move around and be himself, then he's going to play. If not, then they're not going to risk it. So to me, I'm getting the indication it's going to be Nico, unless there's some type of miracle that happens between now, the time we're recording, and Saturday. But for Nico Marchiol, I think it has to be a very similar game plan to what it was a week ago when he got inserted into the game against Pitt. You still want to have a run-heavy approach, but you want to have a lot of quick decisions. You want a lot of RPO-based stuff. You want a read and throw. You want 2 reads and go. You want a lot of quick stuff so that way he doesn't have to think. You're probably going to push the ball downfield a little bit more in this game. We didn't really see that last week. Really haven't seen it all that much this season. But that's also why West Virginia hasn't thrown an interception yet, because they're not really testing these secondaries down the field. They're getting the ball out quick, making quick decisions, and letting their playmakers do things in space. I think when you have a redshirt freshman quarterback who's potentially going to be making his first start, you have to keep it a simple game plan, lean on your strengths, And again, the tight end in this game, Cole Taylor, he's got to have a big game. Texas Tech struggles so far this season against tight ends in the passing game. They're averaging 10 yards, over 10 yards of completion to tight ends. Get that man involved, get number 87 the ball, and let him do work over the middle of the field.
Let me be completely honest with you. Nico is going to be a good quarterback, but the only way you develop good quarterbacks, you can't have the training wheels on in big games. And I don't
That's a
care
good
what
point.
anybody,
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. How do you really know what you have unless you kind of like put their feet to the fire, so to speak?
Yeah.
When you let a player play to his abilities, that means everything. That means you're willing to take the good with the bad. He has to ball, because if you don't, now you get into a situation where Texas Tech can dictate the flow of the game. They can dictate what we're doing on offense if we don't take the training wheels off. Let Nico be Nico. He can throw the football.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he can definitely throw.
He throws a nice ball. So what you do, you limit some of these things as far as you can shrink the playbook to a certain extent, but you don't shrink throwing the ball down the field. If you got 8 to 10 plays at a certain time on your play sheet, depending on distance, you shrink that.
Yeah.
But you don't shrink it to the throwing those balls. You're not making those plays. No. Instead of having 10 on your play sheet, maybe you have 6. Maybe you have. He has to know, and Texas Tech, more importantly, has to know, we will take a shot down the field.
Yeah, and really, a lot of it still, though, it's going to come off the run game, right? You've got to set that up. It's got to be play action. If you hammer the ball time and time and time again, like even Joey McGuire, the head coach for Texas Tech, said this week, like every time you think they're going to pass it, they run it again. So like that, and that to me just shows you, like, if you get this running game going and you just run and run and run and run and run, eventually you're going to get Texas Tech to creep down into the box a little too much. And then all of a sudden, boom, what do you know? Play action fake. You got Devin Carter over the top. You got Cole Taylor up the seam. You've got somebody breaking loose downfield for a big play on an explosive pass. So that's where it's got to come.
I personally think they should, for this week, put you in there and let you call some plays.
Oh, I don't think you want that. I think they'd be wanting Neil back after that. So, anyways, it is time for our weekly pick'ems. It's the funnest part of the show. Me and Gene get to jab at each other a little bit. Last week he got the better. He got the best of me. He went 3-2. I go 2-3. He's 8-7 on the season. I'm 7-8. This is kind of about the time of the year where he kind of got that separation from me last year. So I got to make sure I keep right on his toes here this year. So let's start it off with your guy, Deion Sanders, prime time, the Pac-12. What a way that they came back in that game against Colorado State last week. They remain undefeated. Now they maybe have arguably the biggest test of the season thus far. On the road at Oregon, 3:30 ABC. And I hate to go against Prime Gene. I do. And you're probably going to tell me I'm crazy next week after the game's over. But hey, I'm going to go with Oregon. I just think when you look at them on paper, they are the better team. Colorado, no disrespect to them, but that's a tough place to play up in Autzen Stadium. I think it's a good game, but I think Oregon pulls away late, wins by like 10.
Okay, well, that's the reason why, this time every year I pull away. Nah, man, listen. There's only one game that I may go against Prime Time and his squad and what he does and what that staff does with this particular roster that they have, and it won't be this week. Colorado wins.
Interesting. And I think I know what game that might be, and I'm pretty sure that game's going to be on our weekly pick'ems here soon. So moving over to the SEC, we got a top 15 matchup. Number 15, Ole Miss, at number 13, Alabama, 3:30 CBS. Man, Alabama, last couple of weeks, they lose at home by 10 to Texas. They come back and follow that up by struggling to get anything going offensively on the road at South Florida. They win 17-3. Everyone in Tuscaloosa is starting to panic. Uh-oh, is this the team that's going to lose 3 or 4 games? Nah. I got Alabama bouncing back. They look like the Alabama of old. Ole Miss is a good team. They're going to win a lot of games this year, but Nick Saban is not going to let this team slide this early in the year. I'm going Roll Tide here in week 4.
And again, this is the reason why I pull away. Now, if Nick Saban would put on a helmet and some pads and get up in there and make some plays, then I would be going for Nick Saban. not in this particular game. Ole Miss they have a chip on their shoulder when it comes to Alabama, and they have a point to prove, and I think this year they'll get a chance to prove that point. Alabama is still struggling at quarterback, and I think they will continue to struggle at quarterback, and if you don't have a signal caller, it's going to be hard to move the ball offensively. So, for that particular reason, I'm going to go with Ole Miss.
And Ole Miss does have a pretty good quarterback, too, in Jackson Dart. So,
yes, they do.
Yeah, going back to the Pac-12, for now it's the Pac-12, 14th ranked Oregon State at number 21 Washington State, 7 o'clock on Fox. Look, everyone in the Pac-12 bolted, and these two were kind of left behind there for a long time, and they still kind of are. So these two are really out there trying to prove themselves. DJ Uiagalelei, oh my gosh, did I get that right? DJ Uiagalelei, I actually got it right on the first try. How about that? The former Clemson quarterback, now at Oregon State, trying to revitalize his career. Got the Beavs out to a 3-0 start. I'm going to go with Wazoo here. This is a tough place to play also in Pullman, and they maybe have the most underrated quarterback in all of college football. If you've never heard of Cam Ward, get familiar with this kid. He is electric. I'm going with Wazoo in a very fun, entertaining, low-scoring game. But he gets his points, he gets his yards. Cam Ward gets the Cougs to victory.
And it's funny. Now, look at this. You finally get one right, because that's exactly how I'm going. Washington State, my friend. Yeah, I think they pull this game out. It will be fun. It will be low scoring, but I think they get enough points to win. I'm going with Washington State.
And for the Yankee fans, the Laker fans out there, you'll be tuned into this one. Just kidding. It's Notre Dame hosting Iowa State at 7:30 on NBC. Also, the Cowboy fans, they'll be tuned into this. But anyways, enough mess with you fans out there. But this is going to be an interesting game because Ohio State, for years, they've had a really explosive offense. This year, not so much with the quarterback situation. Kyle McCord hasn't looked the greatest through these first few games. I'm going with Notre Dame. You got the home field advantage. It's going to be under the lights. They're going to be anticipating a big crowd for this one, obviously, as they always do. But Sam Hartman, he has looked sharp here in the early goings for Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins this one comfortably, Gene. I don't even think it's close.
And you know what's so sad? I was actually leaning towards the Buckeyes, but you make some very compelling points. And I'm one, if you have a good signal caller, you have more than a 50% chance of winning any game with a really good quarterback. And Notre Dame has a good one. He is very good. He spins that thing. He knows how to put them, get them in the right plays and all of that good stuff. So I'm gonna switch my pick here, buddy. I'm gonna go with Fighting Irish. So I'm biting my tongue. You understand? Obvious reasons. So I'm gonna go with the Fighting Irish in this one.
Interesting. So, and now the game that you are all here for, it is West Virginia, Texas Tech, 3:30 on ESPN Plus. The Mountaineers coming off that huge, thrilling win over Pitt in the Backyard Brawl, 17-6. Can they move past it? Can they flush it and get on to their Big 12 schedule off on the right foot and starting to prove those doubters wrong?
Well, they've had our number, and I think that'll probably be the story this week. It is what it is. Can't hide from it. They beat us 4 years in a row, and last year probably isn't a bad a performance I've ever been a part of. We were picked last in the conference. This is the first opportunity for us to prove the so-called experts wrong. Our fans were critical last week, and we need them. This is the start of Big 12 play, and we feel like if we can defend our home turf, then we got a chance to have a really good year.
All right, Gene, West Virginia, Texas Tech, 3:30 ESPN Plus. This is always a tough one because Neil Brown has not fared well against the Red Raiders in his career. He's 0-4 since being the head coach in Morgantown. Again, I'm going to go back to my theory from a little bit ago where I said Texas Tech, they had the tune-up game. West Virginia had the strain for 4 quarters. Seen this play out a time or two before. West Virginia loses a heartbreaker. Yeah. You're beside yourself. I love it. But yeah, I'm going to go with Texas Tech. Again, they're off to a struggling start, but I think a lot is being made of that. Wyoming's a tough place to play. Oregon's a very good football team. They got back in the win column last week. They're feeling much better. They're getting a little bit healthier. Again, West Virginia, that's a hard game to move past again in the Backyard Brawl. I know this is a big one, too. They haven't beat them in 4 years. Malachi Ruffin, the only Mountaineer on that roster who's been a part of a win over Texas Tech. But I've got the Red Raiders again, man. For some reason, they have Neil Brown's number.
Mountaineers, listen to me. Don't listen to any news that's coming outside of your locker room. This week, you know what you have to do. This particular game, you know what you have to do. Let's get it done. We're at home before you start the road stretch. You need this the same way you needed the Pitt game. I'm going with the Mountaineers, and as a matter of fact.
We got a little confidence brewing here.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go with the Mountaineers, probably plus 10.
No!
Plus 10. You heard it. You heard it. Yeah, I'm going to double down by at least 10. Because this week, I think we're going to get probably a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. I really do think we're going to get a score from the defense this week, on top of being aided by a really good, strong run game that's going to put at least 21 points on the board on the ground. Yes, I said it by 10.
You know what? I was going to ask you what you had in your drink, but I remembered you're not a drinker, so that's just pure confidence right there. West Virginia by 2 scores. So how about that? Gene's got the confidence. I'm saying Texas Tech's going to win, but we'll see what happens, again, when things kick off at 3:30 ESPN Plus between the Red Raiders and Mountaineers in Morgantown and Mountaineer Field. And that'll do it for today here on the Walkthrough Game Day Show, presented by Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort. Gene will be back with me on Saturday to recap West Virginia and Texas Tech, and we'll talk about it then. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. Give us a like on YouTube at Mountaineers Now, and be sure to follow us on X at Mountaineers Now as well. That's Eugene Napoleon. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys on Saturday. Take care.